Everybody, and welcome back to another video. Now we're going to show off basically it's a feature request. It's more meant as a joke, but I don't think people really understand. When you make a joke request for ICBM, the likelihood of it happening increases exponentially the funnier it actually is. So with this request, it basically starts with the concept of Redmatter. So it's really quickly show off a Redmatter going off, and then we'll move on, and well, we're basically going to destroy my test world here. As you can see, I was over here testing some of the basic pipe systems for assembly line. So here we go. Let that go off. Now actually, since the last video, there actually has been some improvements to the rendering system here. I have actually tweaked severely the light beams. They now scale with the size. The ball scales and the disc all scale with the size. You notice the disc is probably a little larger. It is now set up to be twice the radius of the center, which should make it work a lot better. And this is the scalability is going to play into this next part of this feature. So let's actually go over here and mute that, and I'll show off the request itself. So this was made by Gizmo Codes. I failed to pronounce this thing, but effectively, he wanted to make a Redmatter Ore that spawns everywhere, that triggers an explosion for red matter that eats the world slowly when it goes off. He gives a few different things, like wanting to call it Oshidium Ore and stuff like that. And he ended up doing the suggestion here, and I ended up actually talking to him in the general channel out here about what we could do with it. The concept that I'm actually going to be implementing is going to be a really simple ore block that spawns in the world. That's more of an Easter egg. I am tempted to make it actually a crafting recipe requirement in the future, but an optional crafting recipe requirement. So if you find one of these, it saves you the trouble of making, say, strange matter through atomic science or something. Whenever I actually get atomic science updated, that's still probably several months off, even if I get the opportunity. So this is the ore block here. It is having a texture load problem. That's the reason why you're seeing wool. Wool is the missing texture for all the Volts Engine mods. Unlike seeing that pink square cube texture, which do we even have one of those? I can, yeah, I don't even, yeah, so we just use the wool one. So we got the ore block. This would spawn, it would look like redstone. The ideal of what I'm thinking about doing with it, and I still have a lot to, yeah, here's some pink missing textures, just as we were looking for some. So the idea was it would look like redstone ore. And it would just spawn right in the middle of redstone ore, and I would give it like a really faint difference. But you would see this cluster, maybe you have like something like that, and you'd walk up to it and go, hey, I'm mining, and you'd mine this one, you'd mine this one, and then boom, you mine that one. And that did not work as expected. I think I just got sucked in the other red matter. Let's move a little bit further away here. This was working earlier. Not much I can say, but it always is the case when I go to make a dev video here. Something will always go wrong. So here we go. So you get a little micro red matter. This will end up blowing up, eating a small chunk of the world, and killing everything off. Now there is a bit of work still left to do. I need to scale the audio. I need to scale the pull radius. The pull radius is actually scaled somewhat. As you can tell, it's not eating as big a hole as the one back there. It, however, is slightly off-centered for whatever reason that needs to be fixed. I did notice when I was working on the graphics that all of the graphics were off-centered. And this had to do more or less with the fact that this one over here, which is for some reason isn't rendering, I'm going to have to toy with that, is like 6 blocks in radius or something like that. So when you're making graphics for the large one, I think when Calclobby was originally making, he didn't notice like any of the stuff was off-centered. So when I went to go scale it down, because this is now scalable, so depending on the size you trigger it is the size it now renders. So for those guys who know how to use command blocks and stuff to spawn entities, you can now spawn a red matter entity with any size you want, as long as you can figure out how to trigger the methods correctly. So you got this. Yeah, it's pretty small. It looks pretty nice. I got the beams to scale. The beams were a little interesting to actually scale. Let's go ahead and turn the audio down here so you guys can hear me a little better and I don't have to hear this loud noise coming in. I'm wearing headphones, and rip all headphone users had to go through this. It's pretty loud. So yeah, the beams were a little tricky to scale down. They are the same beams that the Ender Dragon does use. So when Calclobby made the original version of this, he just literally copied the Ender Dragon one. So I went in here, I fixed the scale, I reverse engineered a lot of the code. A lot of the code was still in the Minecraft-esque way where you don't know what's what. Everything's labeled var or filled or node or something like that. So I went through and I renamed as much as possible, figuring out what it was. There's still like 3 or 4 fields and methods I haven't figured out what they do yet. But we'll get to that. But it's working pretty well. So I figured out all the rotation codes, so we got the rotation. I am probably going to slow the rotation down on maybe the bigger one. I'm going to leave it this speed for the small one, as it looks really nice on the small one. I did also, I don't know if anybody ever noticed this, but if you looked up from the bottom, you couldn't see the disc originally. It was only seeable from the top. I went ahead and inverted the texture. Now, there is a problem with the texture. If you notice, it rotates differently in each top and bottom. It doesn't look like it matches up perfectly. It does still look good. And of course, we still have the issue with the edge textures, which I'm going to probably go into GIMP here later, and I'm just going to flat out clean it up. I may also look into a rendering technique of making a circle, because the spear, you notice how we got the spear? There is actually built into OpenGL a spear renderer. I think there's also a circle renderer as well we could use to give it a nice, clean, circular disc, although it doesn't really matter. I mean, it fits Minecraft desk style. The only reason I would want to make it look a little nicer is just because it does look nice. I mean, look at that. If you would take screenshots of that, that looks good. It looks so good that I'm thinking about making a little jar aquarium model to fit it in that you could use for decoration, because look at that. That is nice. That is something you'd put up on decoration. It actually reminds me of several other mods like Draconic Evolution's Giant Energy Cube. I haven't even played that mod enough to even know if I'm accurate with that. I've only seen screenshots of it. Yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to that regard. Now, when it comes to other things and stuff, there's been more development headway on things like assembly line. It's been like the main focus I've been working on recently, because it is an enjoyable mod to work on. I mean, I make weapon mods, I make bomb mods way too much, but when you sit there and you make a constructive mod that you actually can sit here and build, it is much more enjoyable, at least from my opinion. I know some people would love to just be making bomb mods all day like I do. But yeah, so these are working really nice now. I've already showed off a few times all the curves and stuff, but I'm getting to the point where the GUIs are coming together, so we actually have upgrade slots. I moved all the settings down here. I'm going to clean this up, and we're probably going to see like 2 or 3 more settings. There will be upgrades. Will be turned off on the basic tubes, because these guys don't really have upgrades. They're not meant to be. The only upgrade I can think I'm going to put on here is maybe a hopper upgrade, just so you can automatically pull items from above into the tube. But there is going to be a tube that's going to be specifically designed for that, and it's going to called an end cap, which will be half the length of these guys, and will support things like lifter upgrades, hopper upgrades, sorters, and a few other things to allow you to pull items in from the bottom and from the top of a machine as well. So you have that really nice organization style. I'll show that off later. And let me grab the other one, since I need a right elbow for this. Or no, I grabbed the right elbow the first time. Yeah, I'm going to work on the textures here. If you notice how the textures are a little off-center, I think I'm going to push these over a little bit, even though they won't look exactly right. It will look a lot nicer. So those are all set up. Those look really good. Of course, we can do the simple classic where you can remove the casings on all this so you get a much better view. A few people have asked whether or not I will actually make the remove casing a default turn-on feature or not. I think I'm going to leave the glass model on. It does look nicer. Oh, by the way, for you guys who want to save a little bit of load time and stuff, turning the tube model off does actually make a difference. I have actually measured it. It is a noticeable, like, half a second change, at least on my system. It all does depend. It's just the fact that these models are complicated. I will work on optimizing. I think I can cache the render list and cut the speed down, maybe. We'll figure it out. Eventually we'll get to a point where we've got it completely figured out. I think it's the fact I'm generating objects as we're trying to render, and if I can cache all the generated objects and then just call a render on it, it'll speed up. So we do have the junctions done now. The graphics are still work in progress, so they are set up. But all the slots are there. And eventually what I'm going to have here is I'm going to have a button so you can change the orientation. So you see how we have an input, and a single output? Ideally, you can switch this around. It's going to always require that you have at least one output, or it's just not going to function. It's going to flat out not allow to work. I might even put some red LEDs or make it glow or something saying, hey, it's broken, please fix it. Although, I mean, that could be an intentional design that you guys want to do. Of course, we have the actual intersections as well. These are set up a lot better. Here you can see a much cleaner implementation of the slots ones. With the junction, I'm actually going to come back through and I'm going to clean up how these are and bring them a lot closer to each other. And the reason for bringing them closer together is there are going to be buttons on the outside, and there'll be some graphical settings and everything else. So there'll be options on the front panel to make use of this empty space. Of course, it has the same options as everything else does. Drop items, pull items. Pull items will, of course, pull an item out of a machine. Drop items will, of course, eject it off the belt. But yeah, that's basically about it. There is going to be support for inserters eventually. Inserters are basically going to only work on the belt if you remove the top casing, so there will be an actual reason for removing the top casing. So you'll have to keep that in mind, that it cannot insert from the top unless that's removed. Collision boxes are going to be coming eventually. The selection box is still going to be 1 block in size, I think. I'm going to toy with that. I know there's a couple use cases where somebody may want to put a machine on the other side and they may want to interact, and if I leave it full interaction, you can't do that. So I may actually drop the size down and we'll toy with it. The collision are definitely going to change for the very reason that, say you have a gun or something, and you want to be able to shoot through it. So if you want to shoot through the belt, you would definitely want to make sure the collision boxes are fixed. What else we got to go with that? There's going to be some fancy rendering eventually. So right now, if we put the bullets in here, they are going to render as a 2D item. That doesn't look very good. I'm going to look into doing 3D models for a lot of items and blocks. So even if that block or item does not have a proper 3D model, I'm going to go ahead and implement one. That way we get a nice visual here. I just saw that, just toss that back there. So yeah, there's a few issues still left to work on with these. That's the reason why these haven't been implemented just yet. The goal is probably to get these done by I want to say the 17th. Maybe release them either 17th or 23rd. So guaranteedly it's going to be the 23rd because I don't have any school that entire week. So between after the 17th, I'm done with college until I believe the 11th of January. Between that time, it's going to be basically non-stop modding. We're going to get all the mods updated, cleaned up. I'm hoping to get a chance to work on atomic science somewhere in there. If not, the Hinneman is showed back up. So Hinneman's the guy who's been working on military basic core, was until he went on a hiatus. Probably likely life in school and stuff like that, but he's back, so he's working on stuff. I'm going to try to get him to work on atomic science with me, so that way we can get it updated quicker. Probably even pull him into a few other projects, that way we got another developer just beating away at the code, which we are desperately in lack of. I'm pretty much the only coder doing the majority of the work right now. We had a few people for a while. We had like a 6-man team, and then we dropped back down to just me and DMod for a while, and now we're back up to a 3-man team, and it slowly growing again. And that's it, so I'll see you guys next time, and we'll have more of these demos when I have more content to show. And yeah.